Good afternoon, YouTube. This is Chuck, and it's Tuesday, October 7th, 2025, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And as you can see, I'm over here at the park. And got a little story for you today, part of my Chasin Payson series. And after maybe my last video where I talked about the origin of the name Arrow Drive, I had somebody in the comments ask me about a fort that used to be here. And so I thought I'd talk a little bit about that. And that fort was called Fort McDonald. And it was actually on top of that little hill over there. It was right about on this end, right about there. So let me tell you the history about that. And as you can see, it's a beautiful day here. And the little lake here looks absolutely gorgeous. Let me tell you a little bit about Fort McDonald. Well, the first person credited with actually moving here was a fellow named Bill Birch, and he built a house about about a half a mile that way from where I'm standing right now, back in 1876. Well, a little bit later, another gentleman moved in with his wife, and his name was Bill McDonald, and a lot of the early accounts called him William McDonald, and then I don't know if they were trying to be more formal or they're just trying to make sure that he and Bill Birch didn't get mixed up, because they worked together. Bill McDonald, or William, worked with Bill Birch's mine. Bill Birch had a little mine called the Golden Waif Mine, which was just a little ways west of here as well. And I did a video quite a while ago about that. But anyway, in 1878, this is a pretty wild and woolly place, and the Apache Indians were still quite a threat to the early settlers here. Because after all, the early settlers moved in basically and started on in their land, taking their land away from them. So naturally, a lot of the Apaches didn't like that much. So on top of this hill over here, there was actually a ruin. And it was from the early ancient people, way, way before the Apaches came along. And so William McDonald, and I'm sure with some help from some other folks, they took apart that old ruin and they restacked the rocks into a big rectangular ruin, and we call those a stockade ruin. And since he was kind of the driving force behind it, it quickly earned the name Fort McDonald, and that hill over there is called Fort McDonald Hill. So there were several times during the next few years when the Indians would be, some renegades would break away from the reservation or something. So all the locals at the time would go up there, and they called it forting up, and they'd go fort up at the Fort McDonald. It wasn't the kind of cavalry fort like you see in the movies. In fact, it never was a cavalry fort. It was just a bunch of restacked rock walls, and a place where the locals could get together and defend themselves when the Indians came a-calling. And anyway, after the Battle of Big Dry Wash in August of 1882, that was pretty much the end of the Indian issues. And over the years, the walls fell over, and some of the locals went up there and scavenged some of the rock for other building projects around town. And they didn't appreciate it. They didn't realize the historical value of that at the time, and they were all just trying to make a living, and so they scavenged building materials where they could. When I moved to town here in 1970, bring you back around here. When I moved to town here in 1970, the remnants of the old Fort McDonald were still up there. I actually went up there and saw them. But what happened is the top of that little hill got basically developed with houses, and eventually somebody built a house on that site. And I'm going to take you up there, and I'm going to show you exactly what we're talking about and where the fort actually was. And so let's go do that. I'll head over there and drive up there and try to keep you out of the sun. We're part of the playground at the park here, and the splash pad's over the other side of that. Over here is the other end of the lake. It's a beautiful day. There's not even very many people here. going directly into the sun. It's called West Lake Drive for obvious reasons. And here's Fort McDonald Drive. See, this was built way before the town incorporated, so that there were no requirements for how wide a street had to be or how steep it could be or anything like that. When we get to the top of this, we got Fort McDonald Circle, which takes us right up on top. It actually got rebuilt here a while back. It kind of got crumbly, and I used to know somebody that lived up here. See, it's pretty prime real estate. Now the fort itself used to sit right there, and for a long time the guy that lived there at the time actually left part of the fort in place intact so you could see it. But over time, I don't know if it's even the same owner anymore, but they've taken it down, so there's nothing really existing of it here anymore. As you can see, top of the hill there. Let's see if I can get turned around. It's kind of an exclusive little conclave of houses up here. Probably only maybe 3 acres up here on top of this little plateau, and that's a gorgeous place there. I knew the people that originally built this house. I don't know if they still live there or not. There you can see the other part of it. I live on that hill over there. Can't see my house from this angle. And of course down there is the park where we just came from. And let me, while we're here, we'll just go on the rest of the way around if I can make this swing. Maybe a little windshield tour of one of the back streets here. This stuff was all in existence when I moved to town in 1970, so this is not a newer neighborhood by any means. Tell it's Halloween season. Another little pond right there. And there's the front nine of the golf course. grass. There's some development plans for the golf course too. They're going to reconfigure this part of it, and they're going to do away with the back 9 and put condos in over there or something. Maybe I'll have to talk about that in a different video. Pretty nice houses here. That's a nice one right there. That one actually took a long, and now we're back to Fort McDonald. We went in a big circle here. Now we're coming back over toward the park. There we go again. Another view of the back side of the park. To tie it all together so you know where you're at, we'll come in over here on the back way in by the museum. Anyway, that's a story about Fort McDonald along with a little windshield tour, and tell you the history of it and what happened to it. It never was a cavalry fort, but it served its purpose and gave the local residents a place to go and assemble to defend themselves against the Indians if it became necessary. Hope you like that little glimpse into Payson history, and I'll have to see how that comes out and see if I can get it posted this afternoon. So, as I always tell you, take care of each other, love each other, and take care of yourself, and show gratitude for what you have. I like where I live, and I like being able to share some of that history with y'all. So until I talk to you again, give you another view over here and tell you peace out.